Happy Monday, everyone. This is Dr. Sapphire Boone coming to you from Advanced Social Work Solutions. So I know it's a lot going on right now. We're having to deal with stay at home in place. But I saw a post earlier today that said you have to change your mindset, right? So even though we have COVID-19 and it is very anxiety provoking, and we know that the test was canceled as far as certain test dates up to a certain point, it may get extended, but just think about it like this. You have more time to study for the test and more time to perfect your way of answering questions. So tonight, what we're going to talk about is how the test is formatted as far as categories goes. And I'm going to give you a little tips about each one. So on the aswb.org website, if you go there and look at the exam outlines, you'll be able to see what the KSAs are. So what are the things that you need to know in order to pass the test? And so it's going to give you overall categories, and it's going to break down each and everything that you need to know underneath each category. So tonight, what I'm going to do is break down those categories and tell you just a few tips, and then keep in tune with my Instagram because I'm going to be posting on human behavior this week. So human behavior is really about human development, diversity, and human behavior in the social environment. So that's going to be your theories. So what you need to know about your theories is you need to know the stage and the age. You got to match those stages and ages together. And you also, of course, need to know what happens in each stage, but just focus on one or two words from the stage. Don't go into so much depth. Don't become a research scholar. You can be in the PhD program later. You don't have to get a PhD. You just need to get an LMSW. So go ahead and just put those things down however you are translating your information into your learning style, whether it be note card, notes. Go ahead and translate that stuff, but just focus on the key concepts. Don't go overboard. Don't spend 2 and 3 months on human behavior. I've heard people say that all they studied was human behavior. Well, there's 3 other categories on the test, and that's why you may not have done as well because you only focus on the theories. I know the theories is really hard because you have to memorize things, but you have to be able to drill it out, but just drill it out the things that you need to know and not memorize everything that you don't need to know. Okay. So one thing, some more things that you need to know is just that you need to know key concepts. So for example, psychoanalytic, you need to know what is that? What are the stages of Freud's psychosexual development? What is Erik Erikson? Make sure that you're matching the age with the stage. So, latency age is school age, right? Industry versus inferiority with Erik Erikson is also school age. So be able to cross those stages as well. So that's going to be 27% of the test. So you should focus on that, but don't focus all your efforts on there. 24% of the test is assessment and intervention planning. So this is where you need to know about biopsychosocials, about social histories, mental status exams. You need to know about how to rule out the medical first before you even think about diagnosing or anything that has to do with mental health. Okay. So when you see rule out medical as a choice, that's probably the answer. And you also need to know the generalist practice model, right? So there's stages to that. The test is in stages. So you're talking about engagement, assessment, planning, intervention, monitoring the plan and the intervention to see if it works, and then termination. So those are the stages you need to know. Not only do you need to know what the stages are, you need to know how they look. So if it says intake session, you are in an assessment stage, or you might be needing to engage the client. So you should not be in the intake session or in the first session, or when you just meet a client, you should not be doing anything that has to do with interventions. No referrals. You may need to evaluate and get some more information, more assessments, but you should not be doing any referrals to support groups. All of that is interventions, right? That's going to come after you explore and assess, and after you get, you make a plan, and then you do the intervention, right? Also, the next category is interventions with clients and client systems. That's also 24%. So between those, that's 48%. That's almost half of the test is assessment, intervention planning, and intervention with clients and client systems. So underneath clients and client systems, you're also going to get direct practice and indirect practice. So sometimes people get really confused when they talk about other types of social workers. So they talk about hospital social workers. They talk about child welfare workers. They talk about therapists. They talk about if you are at a human service agency. And people get confused about those things, but all of those things is different settings, and sometimes you have to consider things in certain settings, but for the most part, don't get thrown off if it's in an area where you've never been. If it's in community practice, don't get thrown off. That means you need to study, how does community practice work? What are the stages? Okay, and all your study materials should have all of these areas in it. Client system also includes group practice. So group practice, community practice. It also includes organizations. So you need to know about organizations, about structure, about leadership styles. You need to know about administration. And then finally, there are what I call supervision questions. If you see in a question where it says consult your supervisor, 95% is going to be right. There are some times where consulting your supervisor is not the correct answer because you need to do something else. But for the most part, that is the correct answer. And then the last category, of course, is ethics. This is going to be 25%. Now, ethics, the great thing about ethics is that all ethics require is for you to read the code of ethics and know how to apply it in a question. So this is going to go over confidentiality. It's going to go over privacy, access to records, and of course, unethical behavior with your colleagues and how to address that. So we're going to get into all of those things in the next coming weeks. We have 9 more weeks until the next workshop. The way that COVID-19 is going, I wanted it to be in person, but to be honest, it looks like with the stay in place today that it probably will be another virtual workshop. So if you're okay with a virtual workshop, I'm okay with it. Sharmika Lewis is okay with it. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring you this information in a crash course way, in a way that you can digest it, and so that you will be able to work smarter and not harder. So if that sounds like something good for you, go ahead and go over to advancedsocialworksolutions.eventbrite.com in order to see my registration page, see more information, look at the cost, and to be able to see whether that's something that's for you. We'll also be going over practice questions, but we do focus on content because that's what you need to know in order to pass the test. And then the other portion is about how we process the questions, how to eliminate wrong answers. That is so important. So stay tuned to my Instagram at mrs.sapphireboone. I'm going to be talking about human behavior this week, and about how some strategies you can have about studying human behavior. So I will see you this week. And until next Monday, I'll see you next Monday.